Hello, and welcome to Copy That, the series from Quadcast that's all about copywriting. I'm your host, Lewis, and today I'm joined by Michelle Robinson to talk all things copy. Michelle, thanks so much for being here. It's great to have you on.
Oh, I'm really happy to be here, Lewis. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks so much for being here. I'm really excited for our conversation. So, I'm going to get started just on the thing that I ask everybody first, which is how did you get into copywriting?
Basically, it was a total accident, really. So I was working for the NHS in mental health, so I've had a complete career change. But I had loved writing all my life, basically. From being a child, I remember, I was an early reader. I loved stories. I was always way off in my own imagination, really curious. I think my favorite word was why, which often annoyed my parents. Why? And so I loved writing all my life. I wanted to be a journalist originally, I remember. And then I think people do this with a lot of the creative industries. They don't really sort of value them, I find. And so along the way, you get told enough times, get a proper job,
Yeah.
and so eventually I went to work for the NHS in mental health, which was really rewarding, but ultimately just so stressful. And it got to the point where it was sort of impacting on my health a bit. So I took a little time off. And in that time, I sort of came to the conclusion, like, I don't think I can go back into that environment. So what else can I do
Yeah.
that I can make money from? And obviously writing was my kind of other love in life. So I decided, what can I write? Who can I write for? One Saturday I joined a Facebook group for female business owners, and it turned out they all needed someone like me. So they needed help with social media, they needed help with blogging, website content, but they just couldn't do it themselves. They knew it was important, but they just didn't have the time. So on that day, I posted, introduced myself on the thread, and that day I got 10 inquiries, and some of those people I still work with now.
It's that strange thing of like you never know if you're not going to push yourself out there. You kind of have to be your own biggest advocate, especially if you're deciding to go freelance in a creative industry. You need to let people know that you're going to be the best person to do the job and to help them
Yeah.
with what they need.
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of people don't understand what a copywriter is as well. They
Yeah.
think about copyright, and often they'll think it's some sort of legal term, and they don't understand what we do. And so I just explained, it's about getting your business out there, telling your story, really speaking to your audience. And as soon as people kind of understood, then they're like, yes, we need somebody like you.
Copywriting isn't something that you learn about at school. When you learn about the types of writer that you can be a songwriter, you could be an author, you can be a screenwriter, you can do all of these things. You don't learn that there's writing opportunities available in like sales, in marketing, in any of these things because it's just not commonplace.
No. And as well, I think a lot of people think, oh, I can write. But writing to make people feel, or writing to persuade, or writing to sell is very, very different from just writing. It's actually an
Yeah.
art.
Oh, it is an art.
It's
Copywriting
an
is,
art.
yeah, it does take a real talent to do what we do. Without sounding completely self-congratulatory, it does take a lot. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of skill. It's a hard thing to do, but it's so much fun. Otherwise, we wouldn't do
It
it.
does. It does. And it was very sort of scary going from a salary to sort of setting up and just going freelance, because I think I had my savings, basically. So I used my savings to buy a laptop and just started off. But my first month, I remember, I mean, it's next to nothing, but I earned like £300 my first month of just going and doing it. And I know that doesn't seem like anything, but it was proof to me that actually I can earn money from this.
Yeah, it's a complete 180 from earning a salary to then earning £300 a month. But that £300 a month isn't just your wage for the month. It's like so representative of what you can achieve. And it's so representative of the fact that this is a valued thing that you've provided for these people that have paid you.
Yeah, and then I think a lot of people, would say, "Oh, it's quite scary. Why did you leave behind a permanent job and a salary and things like that?" But I think it's all the things you get on the flip side of that, where, you know, I've got much better work-life balance now. There's so much more freedom. You get to choose who you work with, which
Yeah.
is like really nice. And also, there's no limits to how far you can go. Whereas in my job, once I sort of hit that ceiling, there was no way I could go from there. Whereas I feel like now every day is different, and I really love it. And it just constantly sort of challenges me every day, which I really like.
Yeah, that variety is so unique, I think, to this industry, because there's no other job that you could do where you go in not knowing exactly what
No,
it is that you're going to be doing that day. You know, if you
no. And you just think about the places where my words have ended up. It's really strange.
mm,
Like I had a lady where my words were supposed to be she was getting married, and she'd found me online, and
mm,
she was going to do a photo book for her and her husband, you know, about their engagement and things. So she wanted me to write the story of like how they met, and
oh,
it was supposed to like for this little photo book, but she loved it so much it was actually read out in the ceremony,
oh my god,
like the person that was married. So that was like the strangest thing to me. So I think that it's kind of fun not knowing where your words are going to end up.
that's I've never heard a story like that. That's really cool. So with that, did you have to become really like well acquainted with them to be able to tell their story, or did they kind of just give you like a bullet pointed list of like this happened, this happened, this happened?
So she was in, because obviously that's the thing now that we're all so digital. We're not limited by sort of geography.
Yeah.
So she was in London and I'm in Cheltenham. So we just had a couple of video calls where I interviewed her about a story, and then I went away and sort of wrote something up, and then like I said, it ended up being read out in the ceremony. And I think, funnily enough, my friend was the photographer,
Mm.
and he said he was taking photos, and then he all of a sudden realized, thinking, even that sounds like Michelle's, right?
I mean, that's so lovely then as well that your friend could like recognize, like, oh,
Yeah, my style. Yeah,
I know
yeah,
who did this.
yeah. So you have a little
That's really
voice. So that
cool.
that's kind of a little mini claim to fame. But you know, my, it's always good, I think, seeing your words out there.
Yeah.
That never gets old.
No, no, it doesn't. I mean, even, it could be anything from, you know, I love it just knowing that I've got blogs that I've written live on the Alpha Quad website. I love that. And
Yeah,
it still tickles me every now and then when I'll just go and look at our blogs page and I'm like, oh, I did that. Even if it's
yeah,
something that I did 2 years ago that like maybe it didn't perform the best, but it doesn't matter. I know the work that went into it and it
yeah.
just makes me happy
Exactly.
to know it's there.
Exactly, and it's when it gets sort of good feedback from people as well.
Yeah.
Even sometimes, because I know one of the things I always feel like, oh, you know, you can't always put your name to everything, but when you still see it out there and people are saying, and you know, it's good, it kind of appeals to that little side of you that was like, tell me I'm good, you know. Imposter syndrome has us all, I think, especially creative people. But yeah, when your work gets good, there's no better feeling than that.
Yeah, exactly. That imposter syndrome that you talk about, it can be really hard to kind of get out of that sort of self-doubt mindset when you're doing this because, I can't speak to the freelancer experience, but I can imagine there's a certain element of there's no one around to tell you that you're doing a good job unless it's your own clients. So you're just going off of the idea that you know that you're doing a good job and having to be okay
Yeah,
with that. Here, if I get a piece of work proofread, that's and whoever's read it has approved it. That's enough for me to go, oh, it's good. It's ready to go out. It's ready to go
that's
out
right.
into the world.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue. I think when you freelance, you'll either get no feedback at all, or you'll go through like 7 levels of feedback where people make changes to a Google document or something, and they totally ruin what you've written, and you sort of have a little cry. But then you're just like, well, you know, it's what the client wants. All you can do is advise them.
Yeah, it's what the client wants. And if the client wants a Frankenstein monster of a piece of copy, then that's what the client will get.
Exactly, exactly. And that's getting harder to discern now with AI,
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
exactly.
which bits have came from where. But
So I'd love to know within your freelance work, I'd love to know if you've specialized in a particular niche or industry.
So because of my background in mental health, I found that I naturally sort of gravitated towards clients that had sort of an element of that about the work. So I was writing for a business. They were a group of psychotherapists
Yeah.
up north. So because of my background in mental health, I could write articles that were, authoritative but engaged and informative. But aside from that, I've recently, in the last couple of years, got into something completely by accident. So I've started working for a couple of days a week as a freelancer for an agricultural marketing agency,
Oh, wow.
which has been so fascinating. Like, I think of myself as the most urban person in the world, right? So growing up in Newcastle, I'd only ever seen a cow when we went on a school trip somewhere or like on the TV. But it's fascinating because obviously it includes everything that's happening with the environment, sustainability. We don't usually realize there's an issue until, there's not enough food on our shelves. But just to realize how hard people work to get that food there. And it's been a big learning curve for me, but that's one of the many things I like about this job. You pick it up fast, and I think because I've always been that sort of person with a curious nature, I find that I don't technically need to be a specialist, because I can find I can write better about something if I'm not a specialist.
Yeah, I've found that with most people that I've interviewed for this, everybody's kind of said they prefer that sort of generalist feel. And I think there's almost, because we know as copywriters working in various industries, we need to be able to adapt our own style of writing to suit exactly what it is that the client wants. And it could be something that fits more of your personal tone as a writer, or it could be, a brand tone that they have established and that they kind of decree that this piece of work needs to be.
And I think, like, for example, in agriculture, I'll sort of interview some really sort of technical experts, who have all the agronomy, they know all about different types of soil and what needs to be exactly right to grow a potato and everything. But I generally find most farmers who we're speaking to, really, they don't want to know that bit. They just want to know, well, what's this going to do for me?
Right.
And this is the question, like, you have to answer it across copywriting. I think whoever you're writing for is, what's in it for me?
Yeah,
that's what they want to know.
Just a quick, I can imagine then that the obviously target audience for that being farmers, they don't want a 3,000 word blog article. They just want a very quick fix. They want a quick answer. So I wonder, because I can't say that I've ever worked with any clients within the agricultural industry. So is that hard to adapt to their sort of requirements there, or is it quite easy to compartmentalize, to go, right, answer up front and then everything kind of beneath?
I think some of the sort of more, like I said, some of the more technical bits are difficult, because you've got to kind of get your head around what something means as well, and so then you can write it, to people who know what they're talking about at the end of the day. You can't just sort of give a Wikipedia page to a farmer and then go on there. You need to kind of learn how to speak their language, but I think the good thing is, with the companies we sort of do the marketing on behalf of, we've always got sort of access to technical experts that could always give us something, in plain English if we need it. But it's been fascinating. Like I say, I never thought I'd be an agricultural, somewhat of an agricultural expert.
And yet here we are.
Yes, exactly. 2 years later, I know everything there is to know about a potato.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to that about all different types of potato. So I would love to know, how do you find that you'll usually get started on a piece, potato or not?
So usually what I'll do is I'll literally just, funny enough, I like to get away from the computer, because that's when I find I'm most creative. I hate sitting in front of a blank document with the cursor flashing. It's just not good for me. So actually, I've got a whiteboard in my apartment that I just like to go and just write. So I just brainstorm words, basically, because sometimes I'll be writing advert copy Like thesaurus is my best friend.
Mm.
Give me another word for, and you just write down everything you can think of. So that's how I usually start, with a bit of a brainstorm,
Yeah.
and then sort of go back with fresh eyes a little bit later and think, right, which of these ideas am I going to get rid of? Because I think that's important. I think you need to step away for it for a little while and then go back and then sort of put together a logical outline, and sort of, like I say, fill in the blanks from what you know, in the hope that you get a good brief from the client. If you get a brief that you could write on a postage stamp, which is what I get a lot of the time, you just kind of run with it and hope for the best. But it all starts with a good brief, so you would hope you would get a good brief.
Having a good brief sets you up to write a really good piece. If you find that the client is sending you something like, I just want this, full stop, like, oh, okay, but why and what?
I think one of the very short briefs I got was, we really like the word flexible, but don't use it. So that was the extent.
Great.
So time to get the thesaurus out again.
Like the word flexible, don't use it. That's helpful.
That was it. Yeah,
that's insightful. Thank you.
But yes, so I think you're expected to kind of read minds sometimes. So you've almost got to tease it out of the client.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of copywriters are quite good at doing.
Yeah, I think a lot of copywriters are good at being able to go, I can tell that this is what you want, especially if it's a client that you've worked with for a long period of time, or at least have done one piece of work for them before. You can get a feel for what their website is all about, what their business is all about, why it is that they're doing this specific piece and what the intention of it behind it is. And then you can run from it from there. My biggest thing is, if it's a brief that possibly we'll say that I don't fully understand, for me, that's when I find like the words just will not land. I have a tendency when that happens to just go into complete full-blown panic mode, have a complete like mental crash out, feel like I am a complete imposter. I can't do my job. I've never been able to do my job. I'll never be able to do it again. And it's all because I just can't write the words, to begin this next piece of copy. So I'm then wondering, what will be your sort of response, and how will you react if you're finding that the words aren't landing?
So I think what I said at the beginning about just getting away from the screen, because strangely enough, I find that the second I'm doing something else. So I think once I couldn't come up with a headline, like for something, and it came to me when I was sitting in the doctor's surgery. So I had to get my phone out and just write it in my note app. And the same, like sometimes I'll be in the shower or I'll be out for a walk and something will just come. Because I think for any creative person, sitting in front of a screen all day is just not conducive to being creative.
No,
I think you just need to get a bit of space between you and whatever you're trying to do, and just do something else. And I feel like it gets you into a different mindset.
Yeah, it definitely does. For me, I like to just go and have, where our office is, we're based in like a nice business park where there's fields all around. It's really nice. So especially when it's been, lovely weather during the summer, it's been really nice to just go and have like a quick walk around the business park, walk through the fields, clear your mind for 10 minutes, come back with a fresh mind and take it from there. It's been really nice. So, but I've had to learn how to do that, because otherwise my reaction to not being able to do things, as I say, was just to panic and to feel really bad about myself.
Yeah, I call that the mind monkey, because it just keeps chattering like, I can't do this, I'm stuck. I can't do this, I'm stuck. That's all it is, and all you can think about is how stuck you are.
Yeah. And then you just end up with this horrendous case of like writer's block, which is a real thing that people really do struggle with.
And then on top of that, you've got a deadline.
Yeah.
So that's in your head as well. So, you might sit down and the first thing you write is just any old guff to get you going.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, but my it's not really magic. I just step away from it for a while and just do something completely unrelated, and often something will just come.
Yeah. That's become my methodology now, and I'm really glad that I've adopted that. I'm really glad that I've become a more centered, less panicky person.
And I think the hard thing about being freelance for me is, in that situation, is that you don't really have anyone to bounce ideas off.
Yeah, I can
So
imagine.
if I had a team of people who were like me, I mean, you know, for the agricultural marketing agency, I mean, we're all kind of remote, so there's still that, but then there's always people I can, you know, like I can get on with. The say if I'm writing copy for an advert, I can call the graphic designer or the art director and say, can you show me what you've done so far? What are you thinking? You know, and that kind of gets something going. And
Yeah.
whereas like when you're working on your own, it's very difficult sometimes to sort of get into that mindset where you're like, right, you know, if someone could just say something to spark something, it might help. But currently, like I said, there's just me and my mind monkey in here. But I'm stuck.
I'm really fortunate that I don't experience that. Obviously, you know, we're an agency, so there's many of us downstairs. Well, I mean, I'm upstairs in the office. Downstairs in the office is where we all work, and it's great to then be able to like bounce ideas off of everyone.
Yeah.
And because I'm not a big fan of working from home for that very reason, that I struggle to sit there and come up with my best ideas when I'm sat there by myself, because I either come up with my best ideas when I'm in a room full of people or I've had a few glasses of wine. But, you know, especially both. But that's when I have my best ideas. And I just find that, like, you know, to sit there midweek for a piece that I'm really struggling with, I can just turn around and go, anybody please help. Like, you know, give me the first sentence and I will write the rest. Yeah. And that to me then is when I can really take off with something and really fly with something. And I find it a lot easier then than to do. So when you are starting on a piece and you've received the brief from the client, what are some measures that you'll take to make sure that you can balance your own creativity while still meeting what the client is expecting?
I think what I kind of like to do is I like to go down the route of, say, for example, if I've got to come up with strapline for an advert and a bit of body copy, I'll kind of give them a certain number of options, which I feel are maybe a little bit safer, but then I'll always put like what I call a wild card in. Like, I don't think you're going to accept this, but this is my creative perspective on it.
Yeah. Here's just a little touch of something that's a little bit out there, and let's see how not see how far you can push it, but just see what you can experiment with.
And it's still it's still very much like, you know, in the brief. I'm still very much following the brief. I'm not going against their brief. I just want to kind of show them what might be a possibility, because especially if you're working for a sort of a really corporate client, you know, everyone kind of sounds a bit samey.
Yeah, that corporate tone that feels quite generic, that can be really hard to write in. So trying to just infuse a little bit of either personality, or just a little bit of something in there that is, I don't know, just more interesting to engage with. That's really important.
And I think the thing is as well, as copywriters, I feel like they're paying us as much for our thought process as they are for the actual writing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's almost like I want to show them a bit of that creative thought, you know, that's gone into this. I've given them some safe options, but look, we could approach it from this way. Like, you know, if you're not too scared.
If this idea doesn't scare you off too much, we can do it.
Exactly.
I like the idea of that. I like the idea of just saying, this might seem scary, but I'm going to hold your hand all the way through it. And, and it's going to be fine. Trust my judgment. I'm a copywriter.
Exactly. And that's what I like to do. And like you say, especially when it's sort of a corporate client, and, you know, it's very sort of, you operate within these lines and you don't step outside of the lines. Yeah. But just occasionally, let's not sound like everybody else.
Yeah, let's do something with a little bit of individuality.
Yeah.
Something that's going to stand out amongst the crowd. You know, there's so many blogs out there. It's, you know, what's going to make this one as distinct as possible.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise, and that's the eternal sort of goal, I suppose. How do we keep standing out when all there's this noise, and then on top of that, all this AI generated stuff now, which sounds very corporate most of the time. So for corporate clients, they might just want to go, oh, that sounds, because that's the thing, a lot of corporate clients will think AI generated content sounds really good. Because I'm like, yeah, because that's how you write.
This provides a really elegant segue into my next
Very
question,
good.
which is one that I'm asking everybody. So I would love to know off the back of that, what are your takes on AI tools within copywriting?
So I probably, like many other copywriters, have been on LinkedIn every day looking at the sort of doom posts about all writers are going to be gone, everyone in creative industries are going to be gone. At first I was very, because it seemed very worrying. And don't get me wrong, there are aspects that do worry. I've seen people lose work to AI. I've seen, people or being being given jobs that are not to write but to correct and copy edit AI generated work. What I would say is there's elements of my sort of workflow where I have found it useful, and I will say that with a caveat, not for the actual writing. It's more for what I would call the sort of busy work. So, for example, I'll interview a client and it's a 45-minute interview. I have an AI tool that takes notes and transcribes, so I don't miss any details. I am still engaging with them. I'm taking notes, but that would have taken me ages to go through and type something up. Whereas like the AI, it gives me a summary of what was said, basically, so I can quickly, I do it for if I've got to write an article and I've got to use some points from like the 25-page report. I'll say to AI, can you summarize that report for me? Give me the bullet points.
Yeah.
So it's not, I think I'll be clear that it's not outsourcing any of my creative thought at all. But it's more like, for me, it's more like a sort of assistant that does the sort of busy work, is what I would say. And I've found that because of that, there's certain jobs I can do much quicker. I do feel with AI, like a lot of people probably feel, it's that, I mean, it is only going to get more advanced. It is only going to get more advanced. But I think, I don't know, I feel like with creative stuff, maybe we're going to reach a saturation point of there's so much of this out there and people are just fed up of saying, elevate in every single, words like elevate in every single, blog or article, or saying the images it's created of people with 6 and 7 fingers. It's like we're going to get tired of this. It's not real. Because I don't know about you, but there's been times when I read a short story recently that was AI generated, and it was perfectly passable. But then I was thinking, there's something missing from this, and it was the actual soul of it.
Yeah.
Like there was clearly no human experience or emotion behind this.
No
it
nuance.
It was flowery words. It was too much description. And to be honest, it wasn't enjoyable to read. And that's not me just saying that I'm a writer, please don't drop me for AI. But there is, you read it and you think it's missing a heart and soul. And I think that's been consistently true across I mean, if you're writing like, generic product descriptions, say, and you've got like 500 and they all need to be the same and they don't need a personality because they're just very technical or whatever, fair enough, use them for jobs like that. But when you're sort of speaking to people and, these people are real people with real pain points, real problems that need solving, it needs to be a human that does that. And that's why I think that, there's always going to be a need for human writers who got that life experience, who've got those insights that AI just doesn't have, because it's just pulling knowledge from everything that already exists. So it's almost like you get to a point where there's not going to be anything new.
Yeah, I've got to say, I find it really refreshing because everybody has had more or less the exact same answer to what you'd said that I've interviewed for this series. So it's just refreshing to hear it from a, there's this saturation of AI generated imagery, because this isn't something that we've necessarily really touched on yet within this series. And truthfully, AI generated imagery, depending on the tool that you use, it can look fine, but it never looks better than fine, in my opinion. You know, you get some where if it's a pretty nondescript, I don't know, say you're generating an image of a plastic bottle. It'll be able to replicate the bottle perfectly. It'll get the shape down, it'll get the structure of it perfect. But what it can't handle it is the lighting, is the elements of real human photography that really come into play that can only be found within, I don't know, nature, for example. If it's just sunlight shining on a plastic bottle, an AI generated image of that will stand out by a country mile compared to, you know, a real life picture that's been taken of the exact same thing. And people are sick of it. You know, people can see these things, and there's that certain element of, you know, you see all the time you see it all over Facebook now, is people posting like AI generated film posters for films that aren't being made, and people just assuming that it's true because it's on Facebook. And yes, there's a certain element of people aren't able to discern properly what is AI, what isn't real, but is that a direct result of their critical thinking skills, or is it a direct result of how good these AI generated film posters look? There was an example. It was a poster for a proposed remake of the film Death Becomes Her, it had cast Anne Hathaway and Kate Hudson as the Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn roles from the film, and it was like, yes, I could see that it had like got Anne Hathaway and Kate Hudson's names right, but their faces didn't look anything alike. No. And if you didn't know what they looked like, you could kind of, you know, if you looked at it a bit funny, you could probably see that it was them. But knowing what they look like, it's like, no, that doesn't look like Anne Hathaway. I know what Anne Hathaway looks like.
And it's just sometimes a lot of style over substance, I think. Like it looks, because the thing is now on social media, we are used to seeing images that are really, really polished. It's like even if you look at an ultra photoshopped image, there's something about, like, you know, you look at, and I can always tell, because it's almost like if a person is AI generated, you know, the skin won't have any texture. Yeah. It's like dead behind the eyes type of thing. And like I say, often it can't do hands. I'm not sure what the reason is for the hands thing, but I've never seen a person with the right amount of fingers on an AI generated image.
Yeah. It can't do hands. It can't do feet. And it, like, sometimes it really struggles to do side profiles, which I always find really strange as well.
And it just, and like I say, I think the main thing is for me is it just lacks the soul. And I really, the thing I really don't like about it is just, I don't think as a society we should be outsourcing something like creativity, because I feel like imagine a world without original music, without original writing, without original art. It just seems like a really sad, because I was saying to my friend the other day, we all going to end up like those people on, you know, Wall-E, the film. we're all fat and we don't go out, you know, we're just on the street, everything's digital.
Yeah, we're all in floating chairs and being catered to by robots, which in a way sounds lovely, but I want to be able to walk.
But like I say, somebody said, I think I saw it somewhere online, somebody said, I want AI to like do my laundry, do my dishes. I don't want it to do I don't want it to do outsource my creativity to it. And that's kind of how I feel. I still like to have that creative process, like, you know, the wrestling with getting the word right. And, you know, that's kind of part of the fun of it for me. And I know it wouldn't be anywhere near the same doing my job if I just put in a prompt to ChatGPT and said, right, churn this out in this tone of voice. Brilliant. There we go. Copy and paste done.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's really learned any. I saw a study, which you've probably seen recently, was the one that was carried out by MIT. And they studied the effects on the brains of students who use ChatGPT to write essays.
Oh, yes, I did see this.
And it just showed you how much it actually impacted on critical thinking, that they weren't engaged with what they had written, because they asked them to recall what was in the essay, and most of them couldn't recall most of what was in, because I think if you're going to use it, you need to be a bit discerning about how you use it. Like I say, you decide, right, there's certain aspects of my job I want to do this quicker, because the quicker I do it, the more time I can spend then on the creative parts, which are the parts that I enjoy, which are the parts that are going to give most value to a client as well. So I think for me, the busy work definitely, but I won't outsource my creative thought to it ever.
Yeah, no, I think that's quite a powerful statement of I won't outsource my creativity. I think that's that almost should be like the poster phrase for creative communities against AI. You know,
I have to go and trademark it now.
I'll race you. Well, it's on record. You said it here first.
Exactly.
I would fail in a court of law about that. Yeah, it's so incredibly important, I think, that for creatives to sort of make that stance known. Yeah. And there was a great example recently of a film that was in cinemas, and during the ending credits crawl, at the very end, it said, the filmmakers do not give permission for this film to be used to train AI models. And I just thought that's a really, really compelling way for, the American film industry, which you would assume would be some of the first adopters of it within their product, to go, no, I reject this. I completely reject the idea that you're going to use any of these tools within creative industries. And I really respect that. That to me is something that I really do value, because it speaks to everybody in the creative industry. Copywriters might be completely different from, I don't know, visual effects designers. But in a way, we're all the same, because it is that creative industry at the same time.
I think it's but as a creative person, though, Lewis, I think it's just because so much goes into what you do.
Yeah.
It's like heart and soul, and it's like, blood, sweat and tears, depending on the brief that you get.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that sort of process of creating something original and unique.
Mm.
And then if you then go and hand that over to AI, it's almost like you become dispensable then.
Yeah.
We all become dispensable, because everybody now, oh, right, you don't need a Hollywood budget to do this now. You can get an AI tool to replicate this.
Yeah.
Replicate someone's voice. Like, I saw a tool recently that can take, say a 3-minute snippet of your voice, and then feed one of your articles from your website into it, and produce a podcast from that snippet of your voice that would sound like you were speaking to a person and having a full conversation about the subject matter of that article.
And I think there's almost an ethical standpoint within that, because what would stop someone from taking someone else's voice, running it through that system, and then creating something with the other person's voice? I mean, there's legal implications, there's ethical implications to that. That's worrying. And I mean, it would put me out of a job.
Yeah, and as well, it's sort of, you see the sort of darker sides of things, where, like you say, there's so much misinformation out there now. Someone could record a snippet out of your voice and then put you on LinkedIn saying something really, like, controversial or terrible that you hadn't even said, but because they've got the snippet of your voice, and people believe it. People, like you say, because I think people are losing their ability to think critically.
Yeah,
and they don't go, hang on a minute, surely not. Surely Lewis wouldn't have said that, because we know him and whatever. And it's just, but nobody stops now. They just reshare things straight away without asking whether it's true. And I think there's definitely got to be some checks and balances.
It's an interesting thought, because whose responsibility is it to ensure that there's no exploitation of other people through these tools? Is it down to the designers of it, or is it down to the people that are using it? And I mean, the answer is both. But say a designer for these tools, all they can do is put up something on their website to say, we ban these words, or they can implement it in the coding that it won't pick up swear words, racist or controversial terms. It won't pick up anything like that. Is that the answer to that, or is it just, who knows? There's so much that can be said of that.
I think it's part of the answer, and I mean, I don't think we all have to take personal responsibility for how we use it. But I think as well, I was talking to a guy that I sort of work with occasionally, and he's sort of like, he's a tech guy. And he does SEO, all that sort of thing. And he said he's been to quite a few like AI conferences, and he said he loves tech. Obviously, he lives and breathes it, but he said it even scares him at how fast it's moving. And I think the problem is that it's developing faster than anyone can put any of these checks and balances in place.
It's worrying.
So another 5 or 10 years time, I wouldn't like to bet on what it's going to be. But I hope, like we were talking about earlier, I hope we have reached that saturated point where people are just like, I want to read some real writing now.
Yeah.
Or I want to see some real photographs now.
Yeah. I think most people, I would like to believe, would be able to discern what is AI generated and what isn't.
Yeah.
Because you can tell in the tone, you can tell by how engaged you are with it.
Yes.
And, hopefully that's the case. But I'm wondering, because of the way that people are then reading these AI generated pieces of copy, are you finding that you're policing how you're writing to make sure that it doesn't read like that?
Yes. So there's every day on LinkedIn there's a post about the M dash.
Yeah.
I like using that for drama, right? I love it. But now I find myself deleting it and using a comma instead, because I don't want a client to think this is AI generated.
Yeah.
There's certain words I won't use now. I read it over and I think, oh no. But then if you think about it, AI's learned from writing that's already there. So it will have learned from writers like us, and so, but then now, I do. I don't really anyway, but I ban words like elevate and supercharge is another one that always gets me. I don't know who speaks like that in real life, if anyone, but so that's the main thing. Certain aspects of my grammar, even when AI tries to be conversational, I'll police that as well, because AI will say something like, when it's trying to be clever and make a point, it'll go, well, here's the thing.
Yeah, and I do say, well, here's the thing quite a lot, but I like have these like vocal stims that I'll say just on the cuff all the time. I say just way too much, and then I'll go, well, here's the thing. But like, it's just like to punctuate. So, but yeah, people don't say that in real life all the time.
No.
On purpose. It's
So I won't really use an M dash now, which is quite sad, because like I said, it always added a bit of drama.
Yeah.
Like
I like a flourish like that. I love a dash. It makes me so happy to use one.
Me too. Now I feel like I don't want to get accused of.
Yeah, it's like I've banned myself from using it, because I just don't want people to think that I'm taking the easy way out.
Yes, exactly. But like I say, I hope we do get to the point where everyone's just read, because it's funny you should say that, because so in the agricultural marketing agency, there's a few PR people and things like that, and they even said to me, I spoke to them recently, they're seeing so much of that content now that they weren't able to spot it as much before. Right. Like they couldn't tell the difference. But now they're like, yeah, we can definitely tell the difference.
Well, that's good. If they're being able to pick it up, then they're going to be able to police the work that comes into them, and then by proxy, they're going to be able to kind of police the people that they commission to do these things as well, which is going to give advantages to the people that are actually writing. They're actually doing it themselves.
And I've even heard of other freelancers with clients saying to them, putting their work through like AI, checkers and things. But the strange thing, like I said, if AI takes from writing that's already there, surely most good writing, and it's made me laugh, the Bible got shown up as AI on one of these checkers. Now, come on, it's because I think you get into the stage where any sort of writing that's good, people will accuse it of being AI.
it's a minefield of
It is.
it's a minefield to navigate, and I think there's so much that can be said around the AI conversation because there is a, you know, I think us as creative individuals, I think we do have our very valid concerns about usage. So whatever the answers are, I don't have them. That's the trouble. And I don't think anybody really truly does. But I think we need to be able to police it just that little bit more and be able to use the critical thinking skills that we do have to be able to avoid the content that we don't want to engage with because we can tell it wasn't written by a human.
And I think for me, Lewis, as well, for my clients, I mean, I'm quite lucky in that, you know, I've got really good sort of close relationships with the clients that I have. And they're sort of not really interested in, you know, using AI to do their marketing stuff. And I think for me though, it's just with the clients I've got, it's just really sort of emphasizing the value that you bring, which, like I said earlier, is the thought process you bring. It's the strategic thought behind this, you know. So I don't just write for some of my clients. It's like I'm actually advising them on which way they should go with the marketing strategy and things like that. So I think maybe that's the way a lot of creatives are going as well. They're like, what else can we add? You know, we don't just write. That's the thing.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't just write. It's not just about sitting down, typing something, and go, oh, well, that's good enough. There you go. It's taking me 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And this then segues me again, really lovely, into the next question, which is what, if anything, do you wish that people understood that bit more about what we do as copywriters? Because we do provide a hell of a lot more than just copywriting.
Yeah, that it's not just writing and, you know, churning out, you know, the same thing again and again. I wish they knew that it was a genuine, you know, because say something like a 5-word, when you've got to come up with like a 5-word strapline for an advert, that to me is harder work than sitting down and writing an article, because you've only got 5 words. You've got to have the most impact. You've got to fit with a brief. You've got to fit with a brand, whoever you're doing it for. And I guarantee there's at least a day's work gone into thinking about even the thinking stage, never mind the writing, because that's where it all comes from. So it's literally, I wish I could say the work that goes on behind the scenes, that I'm not just at the keyboard, you know, I'm not just a shark behind a keyboard taking your money.
Yeah.
It's like literally I've gone through a whole thought process here, like blood, sweat and tears, to come up with these options, you know. It's so, you know, you might be paying me thinking, oh, you know, it's a bit much for that, but you know, it's everything else that's got into it that clients don't see.
Yeah, exactly. It's way more than just the finished piece of copy that you receive. Yeah. It's all the experience you've got. It's all of the time and research and thought that went into that whole piece of work before you'd even written the first letter of it. Yeah. It's so much that goes into it. And I think I just wish people understood that bit more about what it is that we do, so that they could really see the value in what we add. And just to roll it back to the AI conversation, for a minute longer, I wish that specifically, you know, corporation level companies, I wish they understood what value the marketing budget is to copywriters, because writing an AI generated piece of copy for your website is not going to be anywhere near as good as what a human writer is going to be able to do. And I think that's just what I wish people understood more about. It's the nuance that we bring. It's the experience. It's the tone of voice. It's all of these things that we are an expert in that a robot could never be an expert in.
Yeah, and it's all those, like I say, the different perspectives, the different, because I always find creative people always sort of have a really different way of thinking. Yeah. Like sometimes it's a sort of slight descent into madness. Because there's this really interesting study I read a little while ago. Because when I started writing for myself, I was writing for a mental health website just to get some pieces for a portfolio. Yeah. And one of the pieces I wrote was it was on the back of this research paper that came out, I think from Denmark or somewhere. And yeah, it was about how how many people who are in creative industries that actually have mental ill health. And it's like, it's not, the whole tortured genius thing, that's the tortured artist, that sort of thing's very common, but it isn't so much that. It's just because often a creative person's brain will work very differently. So it's almost like, I always think sometimes my brain's a bit spaghetti junction.
Yeah.
Like the client's thinking one thing and I've already gone in 10 different directions before they've even finished the sentence. But it's just about bringing everything together. And but like you say, it's just, I wish I could say it's not me just, having a good old time thinking, oh, I've only got to come up with 5 words. Oh, well, then I may as well just, sit back and watch Netflix a bit and just see if any inspiration comes. It's not like that at all. It's real. Like I say, it's a bit of a labor of love sometimes as well.
I think it always is a labor of love, and that's the added value. That's why you need a human to do your work for you.
You do. You really do.
So I'd like to move away entirely from AI now, because I mean we could sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours about it. So I'd love to know, have you ever mentored someone? And if you have, what have you learned from that?
Yes, so it was actually a girl who was just starting off as, who was just wanting to go into copywriting. And she was actually in India, spoke great English, but I think it was just, there wasn't anywhere where she could really, I think she wanted to know just the fundamentals from an English speaking person. And I'd never really, I had a writing mentor myself. And I just remember how valuable that was to me, where it wasn't that he was nitpicky, but he would really look at some of my pieces and think, could that have been better, or was that a bit lazy, or, and it just really sort of takes it to that next level. But I thought because she was just getting started and she just needs, it sounds a bit cliched, but I wanted to be the person to her that I needed.
Yeah. It's not cliche. I think that's a really nice sentiment.
It's so, and especially as well, with English not being a first language, I thought, she needs somebody to get her in, because a lot of the clients who she's pitching for work were in English speaking countries, so like the US and the UK. So what I actually did, I just went away and just from my knowledge put together some little kind of copy exercises for her. And then just every 2 weeks, it would be her like homework. I was setting a homework, and every 2 weeks we would meet up, obviously online, and just talk through the work. And it was just a really nice experience. I never like to think of myself as the expert in anything. And, my brain was going, well, who am I to be telling her what to do? But it was a really nice experience. And like I said, I wish I'd had that at the beginning, because a lot of copywriting, because I had a complete career switch, I've learned as I've gone along. Or I've just had to be self-motivated to go away and just learn it myself.
I think that's a really nice thing to do, to be able to mentor someone, just so that you can be like, here's all the knowledge that I've accrued over my career, and then I can impart that to you, and you can go off and start yours. That's just and I think in a way that must have been like a nice exercise for you in realizing like, oh God, I know a lot about this, and I've done really well to get to this level where I can teach someone else.
But as well, it's strange, really, is it reminds you of what you've forgotten.
Yeah.
Because, when I was reading over these exercises, I was thinking, well, that was a really good point, that. Why don't I do that anymore? And it's because you sort of almost feel like, you kind of, it's the same when you start driving. You kind of pick up habits as you go. And I was like, oh, I've lost some of those the basic fundamentals if you don't revisit them, because you just think you're doing it automatically.
Yeah.
But actually, when I went back to teach her, it reminded me of some of the really good things I learned in the beginning. So I thought, actually, my next piece, I'm going to use this. This is good advice. I wish I'd given it to myself.
And then all of a sudden, you're taking your own advice that you haven't taken for years.
Exactly.
And then you're just like, and then you're a whole new writer for it.
Exactly. Because I must admit, when I read some of my early stuff, I do want to cringe a bit.
Well, we all do that. It's, yeah.
But then it's almost like you can see a progression.
Yeah.
And you can see what your work's like now compared to what it was then. And that's really good because, like I say, when you're in the thick of the day to day, you don't really realize how much you come on as a writer until you sort of compare the two, and they're like worlds apart.
I started 5 years ago as just doing social media copy for the coffee shop I was working for. Had a teddy bear as like a mascot, and he had his own Instagram account, and I would just do the posts for this Instagram account. And that was my first taste of like writing copy, and I was like, yeah, this is great. But I look back on it now, and I'm like, how cringe. Me at 21 years old thinking that I'd written the most profound Instagram comment of my life, and no.
But it's great. It is great to say, like I say, to learn things and to just put little, learn it in a bite-sized way, because that's kind of how I like to learn. And then sort of put it in practice in my work. And it's just, like I say, it doesn't have to be huge changes that you make. It's just what you learn as you go along, and from speaking to other people. Like I said, I had a guy who was much more experienced than me at the time, like a senior copywriter. I was sort of meeting him every month, and like I say, he was setting me a thing to do, and he really did. He really did take me to the next level. And I think everyone's got to be prepared to take on that, like, feedback, the hard feedback as well as the good feedback. And he said, this might seem like I'm nitpicking, but if you did this, it would be so much stronger, and then it does make you better. Yeah,
definitely. And then it's learning to handle that feedback, because it's not criticism, it's just feedback, but learning that it's not personal.
Exactly.
That's
difficult. That's difficult as a creative, though, I think, because a lot of your work is kind of personal to you.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, you put so much heart and soul in it, and then when somebody says they don't like it, you start having an existential crisis, which is what I usually end up doing. Like, I'm not good at this, right? I'll throw in the towel. I'll go and get another job tomorrow.
Career change. I've had one bad day.
But then it's because a lot of creative stuff as well, it's very sort of subjective as well. Like, yourself, if you're looking at art, one person might think, what on earth is that? And the other person might think that's the best thing I've ever seen.
Well, yeah, it's that whole one man's trash is another man's treasure sort of phrase, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's when you're trying to persuade people, who are, they're in those ultra corporate organizations as well, like, this is creativity, you might not have seen this before.
Yeah, I just think the whole, I've not had the opportunity to mentor a new copywriter, but it is something that, hopefully one day that will be the case, and then it will be a really rewarding experience, because it will just be a reminder of how far I've come. And
it really was.
Yeah,
it really was.
That's something I hope to do. Definitely.
Yeah. No, I think you'd be really good.
Oh, thank you. So I'd like to move away entirely from work for the last few questions now. Okay. So I would love to know, is there a writer that you particularly admire? And it could be a novelist, it could be a biographer, a copywriter, anybody.
So my number one writing idol is Stephen King.
Nice pick.
I just love the way he describes things. You just feel like you're there. And for me, his descriptive ability is like completely unmatched. I love the way, like I say, makes you feel like you're in the scene when you're reading it. And he uses things that are so relatable as well when he writes.
Yeah.
So I think I've got about every book he's ever written.
Do you have a favorite book, or is that too hard a question to answer?
Oh, I think that is too hard a question. He forayed into a different style of writing in recent years. So he did one where he imagined that the character could go back in time and undo things that had happened in history.
Okay.
To sort of change. So one of the things that was the character was gonna go back and try and stop the assassination of JFK.
I think this one. I think the name of the book is The Date.
The Date.
Yeah.
So it was at 22/11/63.
Something like that. I've got no idea.
Any history buffs watching this? No, she's completely wrong. But But yeah, for me, he's just a complete master at his craft and just prolific writer, and just yeah, he's got everything for me. Just like I say, I'm hooked. I literally can't. I'm up usually. I'll be starting to read. I'll go to bed with one of his books, and it's like, whoops, it's 2 a.m. You've got a client call at 9.
I feel like I've got quite basic sort of Stephen King favorites, because I really love Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption. I know it's only a short story, but I love that. I love The Green Mile. I love Misery. Basically anything that's been turned into a film is what I will read of Stephen King. Although I've never read The Shining, because there's an episode of Friends where where Joey and Rachel trade books, and Rachel is constantly going on about how scary The Shining is, and it's just put me off. So it's just got, okay, I think I'll pass on that one. As much as I love the film. So
yes, and not the most relaxing writer to read before bed, may I add?
I'm not really a reader before bed anyway, but that would be a firm no thank you for that one. So we were speaking briefly before we started recording, and I know this is normally the part of the episode where I ask people if they have any music recommendations for things to listen to. And you said that you don't listen to music while you write. And so I'm going to chop and change the question a little bit. And I'm going to ask if there's anything that we should be reading as copywriters, whether it's a novelist that you love, whether it's a Stephen King book that you'd like to recommend, or anything, an article you've read, anything that stands out.
Yeah, so I am going to carry on the Stephen King theme.
Yeah.
And show. So it's this book called On Writing. So it's On Writing, a memoir of the craft, it's called. And it's sort of like part biography, part sort of his tips for people who want to write. So there's some really good things in there, how to get rid of needless adverbs, and how to sort of edit well, how to construct the story. There's so much in there, and like I say, from one of the people that I view as just the master at what he does. And so it was just a really inspirational read. And I love to read, but when I'm really focused in the job of writing, I can't have any. It's terrible. I need to be in like a padded room or something. Like it needs to be complete in a silence. I can't have any noise. I've kind of always been like that. So I kind of like to. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I'm on the move somewhere, I do love to listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
Like a short, 10-minute podcast, whatever. But this book's probably one of the best I've ever written for, because it can apply to any type of writing as well, not necessarily novelists. Because getting rid of the filler is a skill that a lot of us need to have. Say you've only got space, the designer tells you you've only got space for 30 words. Somewhere you've got to make all of those word counts. Now, which one do you get rid of? And that's just a real skill.
It calls back to the beginning of this podcast episode where we were talking about the fact that this is a real skill. It takes a lot of skill to work at this craft, and that's a great recommendation. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks so much for that.
It's like I say, just a master, and like I say, with writing in general, a lot of people, like I say, don't realize that anybody thinks they can do it.
Yeah.
But like I say, it depends on what you're writing for and who you're writing for.
Yes. Yeah. Learning how to write for your specific audience, or your client's specific audience. It's adapting your tone, and that's hard at times.
And to really speak to them and what they care about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for being here and for joining us for this episode of Copy That. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come and answer all of these questions, and for being so insightful, and for coming out with some really amazing answers. And I would love to know, lastly, where can people find you and your work online?
So they can go to my website, www.michellerobinsonwriter.com, and they'll find out all about me and what I do in my spare time when I'm not ranting about AI.
We will leave it there for the day. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks
Great.
so much everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.